Live from Idner Architects, this is a special edition of the Kilcoyne Show, Issues in Education. Here to lead a roundtable discussion with leaders in education are moderators Martin Kilcoyne and Randy Naughton on KTRS.
Bob Daiber is with us, Jeff Vose is with us, Mark Jontry, all with different positions here. Illinois Association Regional Superintendent of Schools. I think when we talk about Illinois, any topic in Illinois, everybody always says funding and budget and money. And when we talk to anybody involved with schools and education, they talk money. But right now in Illinois, is it a crisis from where you guys sit and the jobs that you guys are doing? We could start with you, Bob, who's currently regional superintendent, schools, Madison County. Is crisis too strong?
I don't think crisis is too strong at all. I think it's the reason that you've seen two teacher strikes just about on the fringe in this Metro East area, one in East St. Louis and the one that hasn't happened at Alton, but the teachers have been trying to come to a settlement, and this is all because of a shortage of revenues that we see. The fortunate thing for Illinois schools has been that there was a budget passed with state appropriations for our schools for this year. However, related funds and the continuation of proration of revenues from previous years have impacted our schools tremendously.
Okay. So does that mean, in a nutshell, basically that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul? You're putting a Band-Aid on the situation now, but somewhere down the road, somebody's going to suffer somewhere in the state of Illinois.
I fully agree. I think so. That we have to derive a means to fully fund schools. The proration of general state aid is going to need to curtail itself. We need to reach a level of 100% funding of general state aid so schools have the ample funds. And the longer that this goes down, the less revenue they have, the greater problems that we're seeing developing in our financial conditions of our schools.
And Jeff, since you're the president of the group, all these superintendents throughout the state, do you hear the same thing from every corner of Illinois?
Yes, we actually had a general membership meeting last week, and one of the concerns that was expressed at the meeting is, where do we go? K-12 funding is some of the sources that came from the legislator is being funded right now. It's about the only programs that are, but there are certain grants. For example, I have a GED grant that I provide services for GED, but I'm not receiving the money, but I'm using the small amount of reserves I have to keep that office open and make sure those services are being provided. A lot of us have concerns after the first of the year, that some of our resources will run out to support our reserves. So it is a huge concern.
So Mark, what's the hope here? What's reality in your world? Because all politicians, whatever side they're on, talk education. Everybody says education. What do you think happens here? Do they see it in Springfield as a crisis?
I think they do. I think they're hearing more and more, even if it's not necessarily K-12, but they are hearing from the K-12 community, but they're certainly hearing from their social service providers and other entities in the state that rely on state funding in order to deliver services. And many of those related services, kind of alluding to what Bob said earlier, those have impacts on what we do in a K-12 setting on a daily basis. And if we continue to operate without a budget, we're going to get to a pressure point where we can't continue to provide education at a level that's acceptable and adequate for our kids. And I think you're going to see parents speaking out. I think you're going to see more and more advocacy going on at a much more heightened level. We keep hearing that maybe by January we might have a budget and that, but certainly there's going to be more and more issues related to services not being delivered. As Jeff indicated, those that are doing it on reserves are going to run out of reserves. And the looming concern also for our districts is that they're staring at the potential of maybe the GSA being prorated even more in the spring because we're not generating enough revenue.